Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a look into rising tensions between state election officials and the Trump administration. Also tonight, what an overhaul of Head Start could mean for the federally funded preschool program. And the new Arizona PBS documentary series Resolve to Solve premieres tomorrow. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tensions between many of the nation's election officials and the Trump administration are rising amid the approaching midterm elections. The situation wasn't helped by a recent security call hosted by the administration's agency in charge of cybersecurity, a call in which Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes went after the agency for what he called their lack of support. For more on all this, we're joined by Diane Nissenbaum. He's senior national reporter for VoteBeat. Diane, good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. This is, in general, this has been a deteriorating situation for a while. Sounds like it's not getting any better.
No, it's getting worse as we get close to the midterm, and I think that's probably why the tensions are rising. This agency, CISA, was established in 2018 to help states prepare for potential cyber attacks and to do tabletop exercises on problems. And in the second Trump administration, they've done almost nothing. And a lot of states have tried to step in and find new ways to deal with the lack of federal support. But it's really just sort of one episode that's creating tensions between the state and federal government over elections.
Yeah, and I want to get more on that relationship here, but there's this security call is something that you focused on in your writing and reporting on this. Was this something that the election officials wanted to have happen? Was this something that CISA initiated?
This was initiated by CISA, by this federal agency, and there's really been kind of silence between the feds and states on this for more than a year. This agency used to provide tabletop exercises to game things out. They provide them with ways to look for vulnerabilities in their election systems. It provides them with classified intelligence on potential threats coming from foreign actors. And that kind of has disappeared. And so, yeah, these states were like, okay, yeah, maybe now the feds are coming back and they're going to tell us what are the threats that we might be facing in November. You know, how can you help us test our equipment? But they didn't actually get that in the call.
What did they get in the call?
You know, one person on the call described it as a CYA call, cover your butt in normal parlance. It was kind of a call where they kind of said like, well, we're here if you need us, and we're going to prepare for 2028.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because it sounds like, for what you wrote here, we got the they're coming up here. They're very close, and you would think election officials would focus on something like that, but they seem more interested in the presidential election in 2028. What's that all about?
You know, there's a lot of things at play here. President Trump has really de-emphasized this agency. The staffing has gone away. There's just not the same number of people to work on these things. And of course, you know, this is a president that's more focused on the presidential election than the midterms. So they just were focused, and they don't have time anymore. They don't have time. There's 90 days, 80 days now left before the election. There's not a lot they can really do to help the states at this point.
Didn't the administration actually launch an investigation into the director of CISA?
They did. Chris Krebs, he came out and sort of knocked down the president's claims that the 2020 election was stolen. And when he came back into office, the president launched an investigation into him. It's one of the many things that he's done to sort of delegitimize CISA.
And again, we should mention CISA stands for Cybersecurity and Information Security Agency. So it's basically all things cybersecurity. Do they even have a director anymore?
Well, they haven't had a permanent director since President Trump came back into office. It's another sign of how little he cares about this agency's operations.
And we should mention that Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes was very much front and center in this call. We've had him on the program many times here, and he's expressed his frustrations with the Trump administration regarding election security, information, communication. What did you hear? What was said, at least, on this call, the security call with CISA?
Yeah, so the Secretary Fontes was the one to speak most forcefully, and he said, well, why should we trust you. You've come out, the CISA falls under the Department of Homeland Security, and the Secretary of Homeland Security has threatened to prosecute secretaries of state if they leave non-citizens on their voting rolls or allow them to vote. And so that really has created a lot of tensions, because Secretary Fontes said, why should we trust you and treat you as a partner when you are threatening to prosecute and potentially arrest us if there are non-citizens on our rolls? So that was kind of the heart of the frustrations that I heard from both Secretary Fontes and other Democratic secretaries of state that were on the call.
And hasn't the administration also threatened to hold back funds if secretaries of state or election officials in states don't go along with the administration's plans?
This is their main lever that they have, is with trying to withhold federal funds if states don't implement some of these changes. And yeah, there's actually a lawsuit that has been filed by some of these states because FEMA is withholding some of this money. And so yeah, this is all part of these tensions that are rising between federal and state officials that should be working to make sure that the midterm elections run smoothly.
Well, and to that effect, how much should the rest of us be concerned that this kind of tension is happening here? This communication isn't happening. Cooperation doesn't seem to be happening. And we got elections coming up here, and as you say, 80 days. How concerned should we be?
Well, a lot of states have stepped up and tried to backfill with their own support. They'll bring in private contractors to do testing for them. One of the things that states aren't able to do is to get this classified intelligence about the foreign threats. So, foreign actors are trying to disrupt American elections. They'll carry out sort of information campaigns, propaganda campaigns. Their ability to actually affect elections equipment or change votes is not really possible. So, the concerns, I think, have to be seen in that context. The states run elections. They're not run by federal officials. And the places where you have problems, state officials are working to make sure that they can address them. So I think we all should be looking to make sure that elections are going to be secure. But I think we have to keep it in context. This isn't like a 5-alarm fire kind of concern. It's something that they would like to help them prepare for threats, but it's not a dire emergency.
Indeed, and states have always, the last point here, states have always been on their own here, supposed to be on their own, that's by design, but it sounds like they're really on their own now because something that was supposed to help just doesn't seem to be all that helpful.
Yeah, the tensions indeed continue to rise, and we don't know what President Trump will try and do between now and the midterm elections to try and issue a new executive order or try and take some new steps that could, throw more wrenches into the problem. So it's always a dynamic time, especially in the 3 months before the election. And so we'll just have to keep watching and see how it plays out.
Diane Nissenbaum, again, senior national reporter for VoteBeat. Diane, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ted.
I really do enjoy volunteering. I like to think that I have made a difference. That's enough. I don't need to be patted on the back. I've included my PBS station in my future plans. It's not a big gift, but something that will help them.
For more information about including Arizona PBS in your future plans, visit azpbs.org/giving.
Every little bit helps. If we can do a whole lot of little bits, then we've done a great service.
Great solutions come from very humble places.
I'm Miles O'Brien, and I'm searching the globe for solutions.
This part of the world has 3 wild jaguars.
Undeniably, it's melting. The question is why?
Join me.
Can we adapt?
Yes, we will adapt. There is no choice.
Let's meet the big, bold thinkers.
If you have an opportunity to make an impact, why not do it now?
With a resolve to solve.
Coming in August to Arizona PBS.
I hear you have a story for me. Then it gets interesting.
It gets interesting.
Yeah, I don't think there's many places in the world quite like this.
Second is never good enough. Only being at the top. You are in a different world now.
Enjoy the journey.
The Trump administration recently announced plans to overhaul Head Start, a long-standing federally funded preschool program. Those plans include eliminating many of Head Start's regulations and requirements, a move that critics say could change the very nature of what Head Start is designed to do. To learn more, we welcome Eve Del Real. She's president of the Arizona Head Start Association. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Give me a better definition of Head Start.
It's awesome. It's a high-quality early education program that provides services to vulnerable children. But the unique aspect of Head Start that I think it's important to highlight is that it incorporates comprehensive services. Not only does it provide early childhood education, but it embeds mental health, inclusion services for children with disability, nutrition, and then the family service aspect that helps families during some of their most critical points in time, especially during adversity. So it's a program that has a 61-year history, and it's backed by evidence that we know that it definitely makes a difference in the lives of children and families.
But the Trump administration wants to overhaul the program, and they want to do so by cutting a lot in the way of regulations. First of all, could it, I mean, it's like 1,400 regulations here as far as Head Start. Could some of that be trimmed back? Or again, how do you see this?
Well, as we're looking at the notice of the proposed rule change, what we're finding is that the critical components that lead to this high quality experience for children and families are the ones that are getting eliminated. So for us, there is considerable concern about the impact and what that will do in terms of the service that we're providing for families. Essentially, it waters down the service, and it could lead to just the elimination of what Head Start was designed to do.
It sounds like the administration wants to see more in the way of local decision making. Does that make sense?
It doesn't. I would say that here in the state of Arizona, one of the things that's in the notice of proposed rule is, for example, group size and ratio, which is a critical tenet. It's very important to the Head Start model, where we're able to provide individualized services and smaller group sizes, again, keeping in mind that the service is designed for children with higher needs, children with disabilities. In Arizona, there is no cap on group size. So when we look at that and compare it, what the outcome would be, it would just not provide children with that same experience.
So when the administration says that these rules and regulations can drive up costs, they can limit the reach of the program, you say?
No. I think that this is an opportunity for us to, yes, look at the regs, but at the same time, utilize expertise to ensure that whatever's being proposed comes from a space that still preserves the quality aspect of the program.
Yeah, and I want to get back to the idea of more local control. What you're basically saying is state control will be like the bare minimum as opposed to what exists right now, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So when people hear that there's 1,400 regulations here, we got to get rid of some of the, would it not be a good thing to see some of those trimmed, some of those looked at again?
It could be. But I think our main concern is that these statutes that promote high quality teaching, family services, services for children with disabilities are the ones that are being significantly reduced or eliminated. So our question is, why hurt children? There are other areas that we could look from administrative burdens that could be considered. It's just difficult for us as we're looking at these practices that we know lead to higher outcomes for children that are on the chopping block. So why do that?
When you make that argument, when you say that this could dilute the program, what do you hear from administration officials? What has been heard, I should say?
That the opportunity for us to utilize local statute would still provide additional access to children, which is challenging for us to make that connection when, again, we know that Head Start, again, thrives when it's able to provide services at this individualized capacity for children that are vulnerable. Again, it's designed for children that are homeless, in foster care, low-income children that have higher needs.
This overhaul plan, is it set in stone? Is it still, can things still be moved around here? Still negotiations? What's going on?
Yes, so right now we're going through the public comment period, which closes October 6th. So we're asking our communities, especially those that have Head Start programming, to please provide comment, to provide perspective on what the elimination of some of these statutes would do in terms of the services that we're providing, especially in rural communities when we know that Head Start is the only service available that not only provides early childhood, but intervention services eliminating that aspect of screenings would significantly harm children in those areas.
Where can people go to make their comments known?
Yes, so they can go to the Health and Human Services website and find it there. And again, it's open until October 6th, but any type of support is significantly appreciated at this time.
Is this the kind of thing that a legal challenge, A, is likely, and B, would delay implementation?
It could. It could, because one of the concerns that we have is that, yes, revisions to the statute can happen, but if it affects the quality, the scope, or congressional intent, then it's questionable. And so what we're asking is that we want to ensure that all of those factors are taken into consideration as they're proposing these revisions to the statute, and it's done in a fair and informed process to ensure that we're just not hurting children.
Okay, and once again, where to go for more information on this?
The Health and Human Services website, the federal website.
All right, Eve Del Real again, Head Start, Early Head Start. Interesting conversation. Good to have you back. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Arizona PBS is releasing its first national documentary series. It's titled Resolve to Solve with Miles O'Brien. The series explores human ingenuity and scientific innovations that are being used to tackle issues including climate, water, and health concerns. We spoke to the host of the show, a veteran science journalist, Miles O'Brien. Miles O'Brien, good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us on this night before the big. Are you excited about the fact that your show is premiering tomorrow night?
I'm thrilled, Ted. This has been a dream, a journalistic dream. You know, I've been doing the same thing for 40 years now. I am a one-trick pony. All I do is get up, find stories out of curiosity, meet fabulous people, and tell those stories, hopefully, to a large audience. This show has just been the culmination of everything I love and am interested in, Resolve to Solve, looking at big problems and the cool people coming up with their solutions.
Yeah, how did you come up with this? And who did you come up with this? Was it a collaboration with others?
It was a collaboration. Your boss, Scott Woelfel, came to me and said, I have some interest in a science show. We'd like to do a national show out of Phoenix and Arizona PBS. And what would you like to do on science? I said, well, I want to do solutions. And within a short conversation, he had the title, Resolve to Solve, and it just gelled with me right away. The way I've been describing it to people is, Anthony Bourdain meets Sir David Attenborough. We get to know the scientists, we understand the problem they're trying to solve, and then we get into the science, the solutions. It's a great way for people to understand what is motivating scientists and really get to know who they are.
Yeah, and we saw from the intro there the segment on beavers, the ecological impact of beavers. For goodness sakes, how did you come across that one?
What are the chances that beavers could have that much of an impact? And you would be skeptical, right? Until you start looking into it. These are the kinds of stories I run into in the course of doing my work for the PBS NewsHour, for example. And the PBS NewsHour gives me 6 or 7 minutes, which is great, but to dive in with somebody like Emily Fairfax, who has become a leading researcher on this idea that beavers can change the environment, can change the landscape in a way that preserves things like the Colorado River. To dive into that is a treat.
You have a story about Emily Fairfax?
Emily's story is fabulous. She graduated from college, had a lot of student loans, ends up at the Los Alamos National Laboratory working on maintaining nuclear weapons. It wasn't doing it for her. One Wednesday night, she turns on her TV, on comes PBS Nature. And the show was Leave It to Beavers. And it was just about this fact that beavers have a tremendous, powerful impact on ecosystems in the face of climate change. She quit her job, went back to school, and now is that leading researcher. So to me, that tells you what PBS can do for all of us.
Yeah, right? Indeed. There's another segment, I believe, that involves cows and methane. And we all know that that's an issue, but it sounds as though there is a way to solve that particular problem.
You would never know it, but there is an additive in a certain kind of seaweed that when you put it in cow feed in small amounts, it causes a chemical reaction in the rumen, the cow's part of the stomach that creates the methane, which negates the production of methane. And methane is an extremely potent greenhouse gas, and livestock actually produces more methane than the oil and gas industry combined. So it's a real problem, and we still want to be able to eat our steaks and burgers, right?
Yeah, but is that a boutique answer, or is that something that could be viable on a mass scale?
It's like a lot of things we run into in this show. It's all about scale. It's a proven technology. How do you scale it up? And many of the decisions we have to make as a society are over our priorities and how we incentivize some of these ideas. Scientists have put some good ideas on the shelf, but unless we make a decision as a society to make it a priority, to scale them up, we're not going to move the needle, right?
Indeed. These kinds of stories, what we'll be seeing on Resolve to Solve, how much do you know about these stories before you start?
We do a pretty deep dive even before we get out the door. It takes a lot to get, what it's like to get out in the field. It's an expensive proposition. We are on the, Zooms and phone calls and doing deep dives on the research, and we're testing out, frankly, the people we want to talk to, because we want scientists who are able to communicate to a broad audience and explain their science in a way that connects a large audience. That's a key thing. There are a lot of great scientists out there who aren't very good at this, frankly, and we want to find those people who have the ability to find a solution and tell their story.
But when you're on a shoot and you think you got X, Y, and Z covered, and all of a sudden you learn A, B, and C, I mean, how often does that happen? How often do you have to change gears?
It happens a lot, and you got to be ready for it. And shame on us if we don't change gears, right? We're not doing our job. We might have preconceived notions. We try to get everything figured out before we go out the door. But sometimes a story will make you zag when you should be zigging, and vice versa. And this is the kind of thing that we always are looking for.
You kind of referred to this earlier, but I want to learn more. You've had such a career, such a long career, storied career, so much success, doing this now. How does this fit into everything that you have done?
This, to me, is the only thing I want to be doing right now, Ted. I've been, as I say, 40 years of journalism. I have enjoyed telling stories, meeting people and telling those stories. My feeling right now is the problems we face are complex and critical. And I don't feel that the media writ large is doing a great job telling people that there are solutions that we can address and bring to market to actually move the needle. And so it's this kind of journalism, solutions journalism, this series, I think is crucial. And it's the only thing I want to do right now.
Solutions journalism, did that ever exist?
Exactly. This is the problem. There's a bias against telling the stories of solutions in many newsrooms. A lot of editors will tell you, well, that just sounds like public relations to me. But if you look at ideas that are nascent, through the prism and with the rigor of a journalist and with the knowledge that I've been able to build up over the years, you can apply journalism to these solutions. It's not public relations. It's just an honest way of looking at things that might be just around the corner.
It's not like feel-good stuff. It's not feature stuff.
Very different.
Yes, very different. All right, real quickly, before you go, we've heard about beavers, we've heard about cows burping. What else we got here?
Well, we've got so much. It's really, it's a series that is hard to describe, including an experience I had with psychedelic medicine.
Oh my goodness.
So, you know, we didn't do just climate. Solutions to pain. I suffer from phantom pain as an arm amputee. And I actually participated in a study at the University of California, San Diego, where they are using psilocybin as a way to address chronic pain. And there have been dramatic results among many amputees grappling with phantom pain. And when you watch the episode, you'll see how I did.
Well, that's about the best tease I've ever heard. Holy
right.
smokes.
I hope you watch.
I'm glad you survived it all, too.
Yes,
I'm glad you're here for us.
It was quite an experience, a trip.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you are here for us, I'm not quite sure. Miles, good to have you here. Resolve to Solve. Congratulations on this and best of luck.
Ted, it was a pleasure.
And again, Resolve to Solve debuts tomorrow night here on Arizona PBS. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.